All right, let me welcome everybody to come up and come around. Today, the North Carolina NAACP and the Forward Together Moral Movement, we are delivering open letters to Senator Berger and Speaker Moore and to all the members of the unlawfully constituted General Assembly. Our staff will be taking these letters around to each member. What we see in North Carolina is modern day James Crow Esquire. This is not about Democrat versus Republican. The courts ruled that this is about racism.
That's true.
Systemic, surgical, intentional racism. Very few times has the Supreme Court ruled unanimously on an issue like this relating to gerrymandering. It should strike us that when the courts ruled, the Supreme Court ruled, we had not long passed May 17th, which is the anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. And the courts then ruled unanimously that separate but equal was unconstitutional. It should be instructive to all of us that the courts pointed out the Swan case as the place that we need to look for remedy. And that was when, in North Carolina, the school systems, nearly 16 years after the Brown decision, had still not engaged in desegregation. And the Swan case laid out remedies to make things right. You all know in the media that the Roberts Court has been a court where there's been a lot of press around, a lot of ink around, concerned about how they would move. We've never had an advocate in, for instance, Clarence Thomas. But this court, 9-0, affirmed a condemnation of the racially gerrymandered districts passed by this legislature nearly a decade ago. It was the NAACP's court case in state court that first developed the evidence that then was later used by the other federal cases. Since that time, the all-white, and I have to say it this way, the all-white extremist caucus that has hijacked the Republican Party has refused to and has ignored the governor's call for a special session. I want us to be clear about that. An all-white extremist legislature that has hijacked the Republican Party has been found guilty of 21st century intentional racism.
That's right.
Intentional racism. On the Sunday North Carolina Spin program, supporters announced that the General Assembly is not concerned about the court's order. They're not concerned about it. That is unacceptable. That is interposition and nullification in the 21st century, where a state General Assembly is saying they are going to ignore the Supreme Court. We've seen this before in history. And we are making it clear that currently we have an unconstitutionally constituted, illegal body leading our state legislature. And it has become evident that they are more entrenched than they ever were. So we've come to declare and to demand several things. One, that this legislature cease and desist from passing any more bills that affect North Carolinians because they are illegal.
That's right.
The courts have ruled that they're illegal, and they've been illegal for more than 10 years. This is against the democracy. When they first passed this, if I'm not mistaken, that's right, since almost 7 years ago. They started in 2010, And they passed this in 2011. So right at 7 years, 7 years, they've been illegal. Now, what is interesting and cynical and should disturb all North Carolinians, regardless of party, is that while they use racism as the basis for passing these racially gerrymandered districts, remember, this is not about party. They use race. That's what the court didn't say they violated partisanism. The court said they violated the Constitution based on race. What is troubling and should trouble all is that they use racism to gerrymander the districts. And then after getting a veto proof majority, they then use that power in a way that hurt mostly white people.
That's right.
Mostly poor white people. They use that power, illegal power, to pass the worst voter suppression bill that we saw in the nation. And the courts overturned that too. They used that power to deny 500,000 people Medicaid expansion. And 300,000 of those people are white, many of them in the districts where these legislators now illegally hold. They used that power to cut public education. They used that power, illegal power, to write bills against the immigrant community. They used that power to pass bills against the LGBTQ community. They used that power, illegal power, to roll back the Racial Justice Act. They used that power to deny North Carolinians a living wage when nearly 80% of North Carolinians say they want a living wage and they want it to be increased and they would want it to be put on the ballot. They've used that power to undermine our democracy. So they're not in office because they won an election. They're in office, according to the courts, because they cheated.
That's it. Right. That's it.
And they use racial methods to cheat. And then with illegal power, they then pass bills that have hurt all North Carolinians. Ask the people out in the West, some of the counties that are 89% Republican and 99% white, like Mitchell County. How many people in that county are being denied Medicaid expansion right now? And that's not a black county. Racism hurts us all. Systemic racism undermines our democracy. Systemic racism is anti-constitution. And even the Roberts Court had to say this is wrong. So first we call on them to cease and desist. Somebody say no more, legislation by an illegal legislature. No more legislation by an unconstitutionally constituted legislature. Fix the districts. Redraw the districts according to the law. According to justice. Without racism. And do it now. The second thing we've come to announce is that our legal battles are not over. The NAACP, and I've instructed our lawyers to begin now preparing briefs to go before the courts, to say to the courts, if this legislature is not going to do what you've ordered, then the court should order and should draw the districts, and we should have elections this year. For nearly 7 years, this legislature has been illegally elected. Every day that goes by is an undermining of our Constitution and our democracy.
That's right.
Every day. It's not too late. There's precedent in history before of having an elections in an off year. We cannot continue to have this kind of criminalization of power. They are unconstitutional. They have proven themselves in policy to be racist. They have proven that they have undermined the ability of North Carolinians to elect people of their choice. They have proven that they are afraid of fair elections, and they know they can only stay in office through trickery rooted in racism.
That's it.
And the time has come. And so we are preparing now. Briefs before the courts. Our lawyers will give more discussion to that in the days to come. But we're saying to the courts, don't depend on the legislature that put these racist laws in place to do right. As late as this past Sunday, they have already had one of their devotees say they don't care what the courts have said.
Yep.
They have said to the governor they will not have a special session, even with a 9-0 vote. That is why we're here today. And we want all North Carolinians, black or white, red or brown, rich or poor, Republican or Democrat. This is an attack on our democracy. And everybody ought to be concerned, because no group of legislators, Democrat or Republican, and here's the good news from the NAACP standpoint, we've challenged Democrats, check the record. Every redistricting battle that has ever been fought in North Carolina, the NAACP challenged the legislature if we saw racism was used. So this is not about us somehow challenging these folk because they're Republican. They are extremists that have hijacked the Republican Party. And we all ought to be deeply troubled when a group thinks that simply because they have a majority, that the Constitution does not apply to them. And that they can use racism to hijack elections and then use hijacked power to undermine the livelihoods of the poor, the sick, the immigrant, the gay, the African American, and any other persons that they so deem, simply because they were able to rig an election and steal power. I'll take questions from members of the media.
What's unreasonable about Republican legislative leaders waiting to hear from the three-judge panel about scheduling when to hold an election when there's a lot of uncertainty about what exactly constitutes appropriate and constitutionally upheld districts?
Well, first of all, what is unreasonable about it is that we told them 7 years ago these districts were unconstitutional. So it was unreasonable for them to pass it anyway. What's unreasonable is that before the Supreme Court ruled, the Fourth Circuit had already ruled. So they've known about this for months. This is not something that has just come up. What is unreasonable is for them not even being willing to call a session now and begin this process. They've known, according to the courts, they've known this was wrong from the beginning. They knew it when they drew the maps. Here are the maps. They knew that looks, you can see them, those are the maps. That's just done to extract what's called bleaching and extracting and packing black voters. They knew exactly what they were doing, just like they knew what they were doing when they passed the monster voter suppression law. But they did it anyway. They spent millions of taxpayer dollars. They have used illegal power for all these years to pass legislation. What is unreasonable is that an unconstitutional legislature, illegally seating legislature, would use that power to pass laws, and then even after 9-0 rule would still be defiant. They've done it too long, and it needs to stop now. What they really should be doing is repenting. Every one of them should be right out here at this podium and call a meeting to the press and say, we repent. Because all of them put their hands on the Bible. All of them claim they're Christians. I don't know any Republican that doesn't claim they're Christian. They all claim they want to do what's right. Well, when you get a 9-0, Gary, that's what that is the unreasonables. The unreasonableness is for them to have done this anyway because they wanted to cheat and they wanted to use racism in order to gain power so that they then could pass legislation which pleases their oligarchic type support. And much of the legislation that they're passing is not even, when you look at the polls, doesn't even fit the polling of North Carolina. They say they're doing what's right for North Carolina. Well, North Carolina is about 79% say they want a living wage. They haven't passed that. 58, 60% of North Carolinians say they want Medicaid expansion. They haven't done that. Most people say they don't want laws that attack the LGBT community, and yet they've done that. So this group has been unreasonable. They've been unreasonable, they've been racist, and they've been wrong. And one more minute. And so maybe in some ways, if they said we were going to wait for a day or two on the courts, but we're going to not stop passing legislation, and we're going to pass and we're going to have a vote to say that all the legislation we passed before now, we want to repeal it because we passed it with power we shouldn't have. Now they should do that, not because the courts say an illegal body has been in charge of our legislature, and every North Carolinian should be sick of that and should be sick to their stomach that people would use power to engage in this kind of racism in the modern times. Any others?
You mentioned, of course, Governor Cooper, the special session not being taken into effect. So what makes you think that taking this to the court level from y'all's end, what makes you think that will make changes here?
Oh, because the courts have the power to do it. The court, in the decision that was made, the Supreme Court, they sent it back for the Fourth Circuit to draw. And what we're saying is draw. What we're saying is do it now. We've got legislative criminals running our legislature. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that when the courts say something is unconstitutional, that means it's criminal, unconstitutional. You can't violate my rights. They have violated not just the rights of black people, they've violated the rights of every citizen of these United States. And the courts rule, I keep saying 9-0. And this wasn't even a court that we had a lot of hope. We knew we were right. The lawyers knew we were right, but people all over were saying, I don't know if the Roberts, they might get a 5-4 decision, or probably it's going to be 4-5 against. 9-0. And the lawyers tell me that you can't hardly find a case in gerrymandering. And so, when you have a legislature that Clarence Thomas can't agree with, they're pretty racist. I mean, because Clarence hadn't voted with the NAACP and other folk and all this stuff on it with anybody. And yet this court said, no, we can't go along with this. We can't justify this. This is just totally wrong. And so we need immediate for them to cease and desist any more bills being passed. And we need immediately the courts to step in and redraw these lines. And we're making preparations legally. Remember, lastly, many of you all were here when we filed our first court cases. Our own state legislature, and let me make this point. The state Supreme Court could have stopped this. It didn't have to go to the federal courts. The NAACP case was filed in the state courts. The state court refused, and by a split vote, sent it up to the Supreme Court. We appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court sent it back down to the state and said, you didn't look at this right. You didn't examine race right. You didn't look at the Constitution right. And the state Supreme Court still has not acted. And now this crowd wants to change the makeup of the state courts. I mean, in every turn, they are attempting to undermine the democracy. And they've been caught with their hands racist-handed, not red-handed. They've been caught racist-handed. And every North Carolinian, even if you're a Republican, you ought to be bothered by this. Even if you disagree with the NAACP, you ought to be bothered by this. It sets the wrong precedent. And it's blatant and open, and it needs to be turned back now, immediately. Are there any others? Thank you all so much. The staff team, they're going to walk in with placards and deliver these letters to legislators throughout the legislative building. How you doing, officer?
Hey, Rev. Barber.
Hey.
As you know, the master's orders say that you cannot come back to the building when you were arrested last few weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. They haven't changed that, have they?
No, sir.
Okay.
So we're asking.
But other folk can go, right?
Other than the ones that was not arrested.
Oh, we got a lot here. They got a lot. I forgot that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I knew somebody would remind me. I did forget that.
Yes, sir.
Now, can I go if I'm invited by a legislator?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So you all can go in. Okay. Let me sign this one by And the lawyers haven't had a chance to go to court and get that. All right, forward together.
Not one step back.
All right. Thank you, officer.
Dr. Barber, explain why you're not going in.
Well, the lawyers haven't had a chance yet to go back to the courts and get them to remove a prohibition. Many times when they arrest us, they put a prohibition that we can't go back. Normally the judges throw it out because it's actually, we believe, a violation just because I've been accused of something that has not yet been proven in the court. You know, we believe those arrests were illegal because the building was open, so how do you arrest us for trespassing? But they write that into the order. They request it from here. Normally the lawyers will go into the courts and get it overturned. They just haven't done that yet. So rather today than go through a bunch of rigmarole, that's why we got more people. We got other people, but we'll be back soon. All right.
I'll catch up with y'all. Right. No. Right.
Hello.
Hey, how are you, man?
Hey, how are y'all?
Come in? Great. Doing well. How about you all? Great. So we would like to deliver a letter. You can hand it to her, then you're going to need to leave because this is a private office. It's not a private office. Yes, it is. It's not a private office.
It's the people's office.
It's the people's office. I'm not
That's
here
the
to,
people's space out there.
but this is also the people's office. I'm not here to argue with this. So I'm here
You won't have to argue because I don't have you
What you
arrested.
got for me?
Ma'am,
can't
I'm
arrest
here
people being people. Yes, you can.
to deliver you a letter. Do we have that letter?
Here we go.
We are here to call on the legislature to cease and desist all business, simply because it's an unconstitutional. Sorry, Chief. This is an unconstitutional, constituted body, legislative body. The courts have ruled this body is illegal, so we're here to deliver you all a letter to
Interesting.
Governor. We hope that the speaker will get this letter and give us a call back.
Okay, I'll let him know.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any idea when would be a good time to
Yes.
schedule an appointment today?
I can't do it today, but I'll let the speaker know.
You know when his earliest availability may be?
I do not right now.
Does he regularly schedule meetings with citizens or is it by appointment?
Usually by appointment.
So what would that process be like to schedule a meeting?
If you will send me an email.
Can we get your card so we can
Yeah,
send you
if
an
you will
email?
just send it to him.
All right, thank you so
No
much.
problem.
You want to let them know we're going to Senator Berger's office as well, Chief?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting us visit the people's office.
So have a good day.
Really?
Yeah, really. Did that hurt to deliver that letter? Was that so bad?
You're not allowed in the office. People are trying to work
They were delivering a
They
letter
can
that, why is
stand.
that bad?
because people are trying to work, and this is a constant state of affairs for you.
With what? With y'all.
Right.
The constant state of affairs with y'all.
What can we do for you?
Doing great. Tyler Swanson.
Hi there, Will Tomlinson.
Great to meet you.
You too.
We would like to deliver a letter to Senator Berger.
Okay.
Letting him know that we are calling on the General Assembly to cease and desist all business because, again, this body is an illegal body. The courts have ruled that, and we're asking that they draw the maps. If they can't abide by that, then we're asking them to end all business.
I will share your letter with Senator
May
Berger.
we have a card so we can maybe schedule a meeting with the Senate?
Here's this card.
Are you aware of the Supreme Court decision?
I am.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for letting us into the people's office.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for visiting. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. Now we'll continue to deliver the letters to the rest of the legislative bodies. Start here to the.
All right, Tyler, I'm going to go ahead.
How's it going there, Captain?